Redline Logbook here for a new story, Wistoria Wand and Sword, from the creator of Danmachi. I find the name actually kind of funny because it's redundant. It's Wistoria Wand and Sword, and Wistoria literally is just the word wand and sword smashed together. So it's wand and sword. But anyway, on to the chapter. So we start off being told where we're currently at, which is a magic academy, and how everyone is constantly trying to move up in a magic academy, including the main character. But the problem is, he doesn't know magic, and so the only way for him to move up is to slay monsters in the dungeon. And apparently this is a world dedicated to magic, not just the Magic Academy, to the point where if you can't use magic, you're discriminated against, just like the people in Black Clover and the people in Mashal. So while in class, Will is of course taking his notes when the teacher, Edward Silphus, I was going to call him Edward going forward, decides to humiliate him by asking Will to perform a basic spell that any mage can do. Will obviously can't do it, and the teacher degrades him as being worthless because of that. Then another student, who is basically Will's bully, Thon, then decides to cast a spell himself, just to show off how worthless Will actually is. And Thon, just like the teacher, just hates Will. Professor Edward then decides to lecture the entire class, specifically Will, that magic is power, it's authority, it's everything in this world. And then someone like him, a learner, has no right to be in the academy. And a learner is a name given to people who can't use magic, but is just there based on their academic skills. Basically, Will's really good at studying and taking tests. After class, Thon isn't really done with Will. He continues to screw with him with his two friends. That's when we're given a proper introduction to one of Will's actual friends, because he's not a loner in this world. He actually has a few friends, one of them being Colette, a noble girl who apparently is in love with Will. He doesn't seem to realize it, and she goes out of her way to defend him from Thon, basically forcing Thon to just leave. Will then thanks her for sticking up for him, compliments her, says she's really cute. Of course, she gets flustered by this, but eventually Will gets distracted when he starts staring at a giant tower in the middle of the city. So we end up getting some backstory about how this world operates. So the sky you see above isn't the real sky. It's made of tons of magic from 5 different mages. The Magi Wanda. These 5 mages created this sky because beforehand, the original sky was darkness, bleakness, and death, where creatures from the heavens would rain down and slaughter humanity. And so they created this artificial sky basically as a barrier to block the evil from getting to them. And as time passed, the sky held, new mages were born, and new Magi Wanda were crowned. And Will's ultimate goal was to become one of these Magi Wanda. The reason for this is a promise him and his childhood friend, Alenia, came up with together. The two of them wanted to see the sky above the sky. They wanted to see the moon, the sun, the stars, and a sunset. And the two wanted to see this together. Alenia was a prodigy in magic and became the youngest Magi Wanda in history. As for Will, he wasn't just inept, he was completely worthless at magic. But he hasn't given up. He still wants to stand next to the woman he loves. As such, he will find his own way to get to the top. We then have a little time skip to the point where he's now in the magical biology class, and he's currently being chewed out by the head teacher of said class, Professor Wner, who is chewing him out because Will decided to go all the way down to the 7th floor of the dungeon by himself just to collect a few monster pieces to get a few points to increase his grade. Will is given 2 points for what he brought back, and he's all excited, but Professor Wner decides to stomp on his dream a little bit for the simple fact that what Will is aiming for is to become a Magi Wanda, and he points out that to do that, you then have to get into the upper college of the tower, and the only way you can do that is if you get enough points in 3 categories. Writing, which Will is really good at, he's good at studying. Hands-on, which is killing monsters in the dungeon. And finally, practical, which is casting spells, which Will cannot do, which means his score in practical is 0. In fact, Will doesn't even not have enough points to become a Magi Wanda. He doesn't have enough points to get into the college, and he doesn't have enough points to pass the grade at the moment. He's 4 credits away from failing, and if he doesn't get those 4 credits by the end of the week, he'll be kicked out of the academy. Will then pulls out his notebook trying to find a way to get those 4 credits before the end of the week. Professor Wner then says, "I am now talking to myself," where he then mentions that there is a Baskerville that just appeared on the 6th floor worth 4 credits, and no one's slain it yet. Will, of course, thanks his professor and then takes off to the dungeon. Thon was snooping in on this conversation, overheard everything, and has decided he's going to get Will expelled by killing the Baskerville before he can. While on the 6th floor, Thon and his 2 friends start discussing if this is actually safe to be in the 6th floor without chaperones. Of course, Thon takes this as an insult because he knows Will comes down here all the time, and the idea that he couldn't survive down here when no magic user could. and then out of nowhere, one of his friends gets slammed into a wall by a giant fist. And when they turn around, there's a giant monster that they have no chance of fighting against. Will hears the screaming and rushes over to help when he sees what the monster that is beating on Thrawn and his friends are, and apparently it's an evil sentinel, a monster worth 10 points, and shouldn't even be in the 6th floor. Apparently it belongs in deeper floors. It most likely wandered upwards. By the time Will got there, Thrawn's other friend already got knocked out. It's just Thrawn, and he is blasting fireball after fireball after fireball at it, but none of his magic can even put a scratch on it. Will's about to go save Thrawn when the monster roars and he gets scared for a second, and he then questions, does he really have to save Thrawn? I mean, he's a bully that made his life miserable every time since he was in the academy, so why should he help him? That's when he gets an image of Alenia handing him his goggles that he wears. She's wearing the robes of a mage, so this is most likely the last time he saw her. This is the point where she became a Magi Wanda and the two were separated. I'm assuming the goggles were basically a parting gift at that point, where she encourages Will to keep going, saying that he's the bravest and kindest person she knows. And this encourages Will to move forward and save Thrawn. In fact, Will blocks an attack that's so powerful it shatters the ground beneath the two of them. Professor Edward then breaks into Professor Wner's office demanding his help because he learned that Thrawn and his two friends decided to go off into the dungeon, and he's asking for Wner to use one of his golems to search out and find his idiot students. As soon as he mentions that they're on the 6th floor, Wner then is completely calm and says, oh, okay, they'll be fine. And I could just use the golem that I have on Will. And from there, they get to witness the battle between Will and the evil sentinel. Both Thrawn and Professor Edward are stunned at what they're seeing, Will being on par with a monster worth 10 credits. That's when Professor Wner decides to explain the situation, and the simple fact is, Will is the greatest warrior in the world. He is able to fight on par and even surpass magic itself. Of course, Professor Edward refused to accept such a claim, but there's no doubt what he's witnessing. Each of Will's attacks are basically magic in themselves. Thrawn, of course, is humiliated and can't stand the fact that he just got saved by someone with no magic, and Professor Edward just slams out of the office, unwilling to accept what he just saw. Another jump in time, we're back in Walker's office, and Edward presents the skull of the evil sentinel he killed. And of course, Wner has no choice but to reward him 10 points. And he's like, oh, you almost died again, you idiot. And of course, the story ends out with, this is a story of Wistoria, a story of a wand and a sword. Basically, Alenia is also going to be a main character in some capacity, because what's about to happen is the whole damn world is about to change. Most likely, the sky that was put up by those mages centuries ago is going to fall, and whatever evil is behind it is going to come for everyone. And the heroes that will save everyone will be Will and Alenia. When I first saw the show and read this chapter, I had the same thought, which is, this is a very generic, slow beginning, but I have faith going forward for one simple fact, and that is, in Danmachi, the two worst, I wouldn't say bad, but worst books are the first Danmachi and the first Sword Oratoria book. And that's because they have to build up the world and the characters at the beginning, and then from there, things really get to moving. And I have complete faith that the same thing is going to happen with Wistoria. So I'm going to keep to this story going forward. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, give it a thumbs up, so you can enjoy more Wistoria and other amazing things. Thank you, and have a great day.